Welcome back to the Tech Startup Network podcast. Joining me today is Natalie Levy, the founder of She's Independent, a women-first investment group offering an entirely new way to support women's financial independence and influence through investing in board placements. As a member-led investment group, She's Independent marries empowerment and action with the ultimate mission of closing the power gap in investing by getting more women on the cap table, in the boardroom, and into positions of influence. Over the next 12 months, She's Independent plans to deploy over $2 million of capital collectively and has invested in 13 deals since its formation in 2022. Natalie, welcome to the show.
Thanks. I'm so excited to be here.
I'm so excited to have you here. I'd love to have you start off by sharing with our listeners more about who you are and what you do.
Yeah, absolutely. Gosh, so much. So I'll just start somewhere and then, you guide me as you like. I'm an engineer, mathematician, turned financial professional, worked in enterprise sales. And today I run and operate this Women First investment group that you just mentioned. I'm really excited about both investing myself and also working with others, predominantly women, but really, anyone's welcome to be a part of it to democratize access to private investing. I love being, the change you want to see, whether it's the investor check, how you show up, how you use your voice. So I'd say my essence is probably like, creative professional who has stepped into her voice and knows, what she brings. And I just really appreciate, authenticity and showing up.
I love that. And I love also your journey, how you've kind of spanned from being an engineer to going onto Wall Street to now supporting others with getting into investing. And so I'd love to hear how that arc happened of your career. If there was anything
Yeah,
in particular
totally.
that led you to where you are today.
I think we're born into this world with an opportunity, let's say.
Hmm.
And for me, there was always this really deep, palpable grit and resilience that I always just kind of stepped into where when I was treated a certain way, being a woman, a young woman, a woman with long hair, I mean, you name it, when I was, told, oh, well, women are not derivatives traders, they're sales professionals, or they don't go into finance, I always just worked harder and I
Hmm.
wanted to establish, independence and really just, power within myself. Um, and so I think everybody has their own journey. For me, I was attracted to finance and money. I mean, it's all energy and I love energy. But ultimately really gravitated towards, these things that felt really deeply meaningful, honoring, respecting, celebrating women in, all places and all stages. And so I guess I kind of fought my way to Wall Street. I kind of fought my way into these, male dominated industries. Ultimately, I was also in private equity. But again and again just kind of felt battered, beaten up, wasn't offered the mentorship, these things that felt like they would really allow me to launch. And
Hmm.
I went through some really tough things, some very deep losses from 2019 in our family. And just being with these things, whether it was sickness, whether it was, suicide loss, I don't know. I went further inward and recognized there's a different way to do this. And I'm going to not invest like all of the others I've seen do it, but I'm going to do something that I want to do, that I want to see in the world. And again, that really supports and celebrates women and, honors my journey, my mom, and, other folks in my life.
Oh my gosh, it's incredible. And like you said, being able to make sure that there's access to opportunity and giving women the opportunities that they deserve to be able to be on the cap table and play a
Yeah.
role in the major or overall investment scope.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
And
so
I,
what
I
was it?
think oh, sorry, there's one other thing I think I should mention, which is
Mhm.
there's nothing wrong with liking money, right? And here I am,
Mm.
a woman, and, I have my own house. I actually have a vacation or fun mountain spot with some girlfriends, but I've decided I'm not living in a way where it's like, how do I just maximize my wealth? And so, even thinking about the way I operate the investment group, the way that I've democratized so that other folks can step in and launch, and even being really investor friendly and transparent with how we run deals. Um, it's not my dream to be a fund manager that makes $1 billion. Like, that's not my dream. My dream is like, I'm living it, which
Mhm.
is having others that are incredible humans, in community and investing and allocating and stepping into influence alongside. And I think that's a really important thing because a lot of people in finance, like, there is money and maximizing capital and maximizing returns at the end of the day. But I really look at this lens of like, what do I want to support? And where do I think there's good risk reward, right? You can do both of those things. And so I just want to name that quickly because I think the way we operate as an angel group is really unique.
100%. And I love that you
Yeah.
mentioned that about like not being afraid to talk about money because I think especially as women, right? Like we've been taught to like not talk about money and not really be open about that type of stuff. But there's so much power in talking about it, especially as you
Yes.
mentioned, like money is energy. So there's
Yeah.
such a level of empowerment that comes with that.
Yes. Absolutely. And by the way, if you don't talk about the thing that scares you, you're never going to grow. You're never going to learn.
Mhm.
How do you evolve? How do you work through trauma? Everyone has some kind of money trauma. I don't care if you have money or you don't. And so to give light to it, right? To speak to it, you can really transform and evolve your story.
Absolutely. And so, what was that
Yeah.
defining moment that made you realize, like, there's a need for something like she's independent and I'm going to be
Yeah.
the one to build it?
Honestly, from like very young years in my life, I just like leaned into money and like,
Mhm.
I'm like to my older sister, why are you buying candles? Like I'm saving my money and putting it in the bank. Like I understood there was this power in money. Um, the Wall Street days, like just wanting again to like have my own independence. I think for me, there were number of aha moments. Like for me throughout my career, I think seeing, strong and powerful women get on stages or, have an influence on me, it's like I wanted to give back. I wanted to be that woman influencing and being able to support and celebrate other young girls, other young women. Today, there's women of all ages in the group from teenagers to retirees. I mean, you name it. Uh, so yeah, I just think there's something that whether it's the misogyny, the, harassment, the what happened generations before us, my mom, her mom, all of these women who have been silenced. For me, there's this phrase, money speaks. Like for me to be able to step into my voice, step into my power, step into money flow that I care about. Um, it's like always been something that I know I've needed to do. And I think with She's Independent, which is this business I launched, I'd always wanted to do something that, supported and skilled and celebrated women. And it just very naturally happened after this loss in 2019 of my mother, where it was like, all right, like I'm taking time and space from work and I'm healing and I want to do something and I want to launch this. I want to start this. And so it was really just an organic had been building over time, but finally a women saying they wanted to invest with me. And I said, okay, I'm going to formally launch this investment group and create something organically, based on interest and desire.
Incredible. And I know you briefly mentioned what's different about She's Independent compared to other investment groups, but I'd love if you could share
Yeah,
more about that and give us the
absolutely.
details.
Yeah, I think, listen, there's a lot of great folks out there that are, running initiatives and building initiatives for women in the name of women. And the way that we do it is fairly unique or I don't know if I don't think I've seen anybody else do it like us. And what I mean is it's democratized, it's accessible, there's a truly this space of belonging and transparency. So whether or not someone has capital, they can be a part of all aspects of deal making in the deal rooms, transparently see an investor friendly organization that both educates and brings them along and launches them. But we're not from the lens of let's try to get the biggest check possible and just cater to, people with capital.
Mhm.
Um, the way that I think of the bottom line is like it is soul medicine for me. Like it
Mhm.
is not about like it's not paying me anything right now. Like if and when we receive exits, which I think we will, that will pay me for the amount I've put into it. But it is soul medicine. Like we really operate in a way where it's how do we truly offer this really high caliber deal making and access to this private investing space world to folks that haven't had it before. And so we probably cater even more so to like early first time kind of investors, even though we're sophisticated, um, than many other groups. And I think a lot of other groups are run by folks that are like, ooh, I want to be an investor, let me run an angel group. And for me, like I already was an investor. And for me, I was just loving the journey and having others that wanted to give me money. I was like, I don't want to steward your capital. I'm happy to form this really interesting and quality entity or investment group where you can invest alongside. So I think inherently, like from the get-go, it's just been a very different, type of operation. Um, we are really investor friendly, transparent. We run diligence, some of those groups, it's like, hey, buyer beware, invest, and there are probably a bunch of write-offs. I mean, we're investing in really interesting, high caliber businesses. And we invest from a place of, again, this like really deep desire of what do we want to see in the world? And so it's not just great business. It's great business meets, again, it could be, you could talk about culture, you could talk about energy. I call it quantum alignment, right? Who are the people behind the business? And so, yeah, I think our really, really deep mission, it allows us to operate in a fairly unique way where, again, there's this high caliber deal making that happens as well, given expertise and a real portfolio track record that I brought.
Oh, I love that. And I especially love
Yeah.
what you mentioned about the fact that whether or not someone has capital to contribute, they have the opportunity to still be in the room. And
Yes.
I think that's huge because I feel like there's an assumption sometimes, especially with women, where they're like, well, I don't have X amount of dollars, so I don't have the
Right.
opportunity to invest. But that's so not the case, as I'm sure you always
Oh,
see.
oh, 100%. And you have women with capital that like don't feel confident stepping into check writer. And so
Hmm.
there's a journey for everyone. And we have a number of young folks and even people, mid-career, and they're like learning because they want to be an investor in the near future or in the, forward in their life. We have founders that want to be more strategic with how they allocate or think about, I should say, fundraising so that they can raise with that lens. And then in the future, if they, have more capital, then they might invest. And so I think creating that environment and also it being this kind of multi-generational, it's not just me, right? Like we have amazing folks in our group and ecosystem and they're learning alongside each other. And so it's a really incredible effort.
Absolutely. And also really interesting you mentioned too about how everyone has money trauma and a money story.
Yeah.
And that's one thing I'm really interested in is just reading all the data that comes from us learning our money habits, our money thoughts, our perspectives
Yeah.
from our parents, our guardians, whoever helped us grow as children and into who we are today. And so I'm curious
Yeah.
if you see that come into play within your community.
Yeah. I mean, the money story is a huge, huge thing.
Mhm.
I would say everybody has something. I mean,
Mhm.
I'm gonna equate this to health for a second, right? Like we're women, at some point we're gonna go through perimenopause, menopause, like the way health plays out in our bodies, there might be a playbook, but then it's also individual, who are you, what's happening in your body? There's like so much happening. And so what I would say is spending time with ourselves and our thoughts and like digging into, what's the thing? Like what's the thing that drives us? What's the thing that scares us? How do we work with it? Um, it's really incredible and it's really
Mhm.
empowering. And again, everybody has a story. I have a woman in the group who's probably worth, about $10 million dollars right now. And to write a check for $20,000, she checks in with her wealth manager. She doesn't need to do that financially, but right now that's where she is. Right.
Mhm.
And so I think a big part of it is just having the conversations and speaking to and unearthing, what's the thing that scares us? Why? What's stopping us? And so many times when I'm giving these talks around angel investing, folks are like, I'm interested, but like, I'm not confident. I'm not there yet. And it's like, okay, you can ideate, brainstorm all day long, but until you change your behavior, your mindset may not change. And
Yeah.
so just talking through these things, like I see in your background, get comfortable with the uncomfortable, right? Like risk is not a bad thing. Calculated intentional risk, right? That's amazing. And the growth you can experience by playing with, call it growth edges, things that are uncomfortable for you, like that's incredible. And for me, I've been through so much tough things in life, so many, really, really debilitating things from, the deep loss or, the just my body like failing me. And to spend time with that, you learn so much. And so I'd say everybody has the opportunity to grow, but it's really how do you engage? And I think being also in community with others that can inspire or support you in that is huge.
Yes, I mean, you must see such incredible relationships forming between the members within
Yeah.
She's Independent. And like you said, just learning from each other and asking questions and getting from advice. As you shared, like bringing like-minded people together, incredible things can happen.
Yeah. And it's like minded in that, I think there's this deeply rooted mission of like, we care about the equity gaps. We want more women stepping into influence and getting funded. But it's not like minded in that people all have different backgrounds, right?
Hmm.
And it's not this like groupthink Silicon Valley thing, nothing wrong with, if you come from a finance background as I did. But it's incredible because the change is happening also within the individual and then also within their home and their community. And so Dr. Idong Essie at Gibson, a Nigerian woman, her family, her kids, her Nigerian community, like she has an impact on them because now she's showing up like an investor and she's engaging in different conversation. And so it's really cool. It's like within our group at She's Independent, but then also these other ecosystems as well.
Totally. And on the
Yeah.
topic of your story, you've written a book about everything that you've
Yeah.
learned in your journey since. And so I'd love to hear more about your book if you could share it with our
Yes.
audience.
I have one right here. I'm just going to hold it up for fun.
Yeah.
So Cash is Queen, A Conscious Journey in Angel Investing. Gosh, I had a blast writing it. I've been on a lot of stages speaking and sharing, and to be able to share a little bit more of that manual that's deeper stories and more about launching as an investor, it just felt really incredible to be able to put it down on the pages of this book and also put myself into it, right? It's not just money, it's also money story. It's unpacking things like, money trauma and some exercises of like, well, what could you do? Some basics of personal finance, but really deeply speaking to venture investing and strategy and um, even how our group operates because I want to see other women first angel groups in this world. Um, so it was really incredible, yeah, to dive in and to spend the time, on these pages because the reflection and even just sharing stories of self and what I've been through to inspire others, felt like a really incredible feat. And I also am, sharing stories from another dozen women that have had their own, stories of and transformation of stepping into angel investing. Um, so it feels really incredible to have written it and put it out there in the world, and it's something that I'm excited to share. And I get random outreach, and it's like a 14-year-old woman, or sorry, a mother who reaches out and she's like, my 14-year-old got me your book, now I'm joining your investment group, and like I've learned so much, and it's just this like incredible thing.
Oh my gosh, that's
Yeah.
amazing. And as you shared, like it's a really good place for people to like read it and dive into people who have found success in angel investing, investing
Yeah.
overall. And so would love to hear your advice for someone who's
Yeah.
listening to this episode and is interested in getting into an angel investing for the first time. Like, what are your top
Yeah.
tips for them?
Yeah. I mean, I think my top tip is like, if you're new to this, like don't do it alone, right?
Mhm.
Do not do it alone. Whether it's a group like ours, maybe, friends that and maybe somebody has a finance background, an alumni group, like just don't start by yourself.
Mhm.
Um, there's a lot of crap out there and there's a lot to learn, and you don't want to be writing, checks that are going to zero because you don't know how to run diligence or you don't have a good funnel to like find good deals. I think that's a big one. Let me say, as importantly, like just start. And
Yeah,
so don't be thoughtless, like be thoughtful and intentional and know what you get out of it and know the risk, but um, start, right? Like there's no better time. I was planting a tree over the weekend and the paper said, that the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago, and the second best time is today, right? Like start building that portfolio, start stepping into skills. Um, and there's so much you can learn. I think the third thing I would say is for early stage, which is typically where angels are playing, unless you have a ton of money and you're doing like later stage, or there's other ways to get involved. But I would say people, right?
Mhm.
Founding team, who's running the business, like that matters to me way more than anything else, right? From expertise, execution, their background, like their why. At early stage, it's like the people are everything. So those are probably like my three upfront tips, but there's a lot that I speak to in the book, including examples of write-offs and, things that didn't work. Because if I was just sitting here glorifying, the wins in my track record, I'd be doing everyone a disservice. And I think it's really important to recognize the real inherent risk, in this, and how incredibly powerful, influential, and like exponential, you can be on terms of growth if you want to participate.
Definitely. And you
Yeah.
really put it simply, like just start. Like what's holding you
Yes.
back?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. And so I'm also curious to hear from like the deal side, how you come across investments that you kind of share with your community. For
Yeah.
anyone who might be who listening to this episode who's a founder and maybe wants
Yeah,
to get their startup scene in front of you, if that's an option.
absolutely. First, I'll say, quickly commenting on deals, your deal funnel is like hugely important as an angel or an
Hmm.
investor, because what you see in finding quality deals, I mean, that's what allows you to allocate to quality deals, right?
Yeah.
So we do a lot around our deal machine. You can reach out to us or check out our website, she'sindependent.com. And there's numerous ways you can click around and, apply to pitch us. You also, of course, can reach out to, some of our deal leaders on LinkedIn. But I would say going through the website and we have like an intake form, that's probably the best way to get on our radar. But of course, sending a thoughtful note is great as well. And I think just to be thoughtful, right? Like if you're a founder, if you're a CEO, if you're like trying to fundraise, not just to spray and pray, like using some AI tool that just like, tries to boil the ocean, but hey, I saw she's independent, invested in a number of sustainability and green tech businesses. We're women owned, or, we have women on in executive leadership roles. And we're really, interested in connecting. We're about to raise a seed plus. We see that you are actively allocating there. You can start to be more personal, and then a thoughtfully driven written note is going to drive more conversion. But we do look at all the deals that come through our deal funnel.
Oh, I love that. And yeah, you
Yeah,
you nailed it. I mean, just being personal in your outreach and being able
yeah,
to make that connection really goes a long way.
absolutely.
And as we get into the second half of the year, I'd love to hear what's coming up for She's Independent. If there's anything
Yeah.
exciting that you're working on or something new that you're developing that you're able to share with us.
Yeah. It's funny. I just made the comment about AI. There's sloppy ways to use AI, right? AI slop. And then there's really smart ways. And
Hmm.
we have rolled out some really strategic, thoughtful things that allow us to be more scalable, more efficient. Of course, the human discernment and creative and all that matters greatly, but also there's stuff that you can, automate that we'll continue to do so that we can go even deeper on like the discernment level. We have not yet automated or added much AI to like the investment process by design. We started in other aspects, but I think that's something that we're going to continue to like think about building out, because just having, thoughtfulness and efficiency that again doesn't remove the human element, but says how do we amplify and how do we scale to do, more smarter, basically.
Hmm.
And then I think the other thing is like with I don't know, technology and, disintermediation of, people connecting, we lean really hard into people and creative and community. And so highlighting like this real transformation and these real human stories, we'll continue to do that. It's a really exciting, piece of what we do. We don't manufacture it. Like this stuff happens organically. So really excited to amplify that messaging. And I'd say on the investment side, we just are closing our fourth, or we just, yeah, we're closing our fourth follow on, meaning we already invested in these deals and we're investing again. And that's kind of incredible. I mean, I never thought we'd be doing so many follow-ons, but in an environment where, funding is tougher, M&A is slower, it's really great to be able to show up and reinvest in businesses that we know and love. And I imagine we'll, have another handful or so of investments, this calendar year as well. And I imagine that they're not just going to be follow-ons. So I guess I would just kind of highlight that. We're in diligence actually with two great companies right now. Um, One of them is breast imaging for dense breasts, which is something that does not currently exist, and they have amazing technology. And then another one basically takes steel slag or byproduct and then uses it in a wastewater treatment process to be better for the environment and use less harmful chemicals. So some really interesting deals, and we just continue to source and screen and run diligence and invest. And so I think at our core, we're doing exactly what we want, and we just continue to add more strategy and up level as we further build the portfolio, which we're actually now at 16 deals. I think our
Oh,
our yeah, I know we're a little delayed, or I'd say outdated on that bio. But even like to celebrate another one, we typically do venture deals, but one of the deals that we just invested in, or we invested the other year, it's actually a women centric film, and they just premiered at this Bentonville Film Festival that Gina Davis does. It's amazing, and so maybe we'll sit in on a film screening. Like we're kind of doing just some tremendous stuff that venture investing is at the core, but we're also celebrating and just excited to show up and support these companies.
oh my gosh, I love
Yeah,
that. And for you personally, I know you mentioned that like looking at the founders of these companies is something that you really care about when looking to invest. But is there any like particular interest that you have? Like if there's a certain
yeah.
sector, or industry that you feel really passionate about these days?
Yeah, it's a great question. When I started this, I did not think we'd be doing so much in women's health and healthcare.
Mhm.
I don't have a healthcare background, even though I love optimizing, for health and wellness, and our mental health, of course, is a game changer as well. Um, and the folks that we've ultimately, had join us, a bunch of them had deep healthcare backgrounds. We're sourcing these really quality healthcare deals. Right now, about 60% of our portfolio is healthcare and health tech. So yeah, I think that category we've seen novel or new technology that's been incredible. We've seen and invested in, overlooked markets because we know that women weren't at the helm of, a lot of these kind of fund allocator seats. And so it's been just this really incredible opportunity that both feels impactful and really, really rewarding
Mhm.
to also invest in ourselves as women, through this category. And I'd say, yeah, sustainability, environmental, that has also been a big one for us that I think we remain excited about. Um, Something that we've looked at a lot and we haven't yet allocated to specifically is like mental health or mental health tech. There's actually a company right now I like a lot, and it's addressing and doing something interesting for kids. And yeah, I think, just continuing to look at deals that, excite us, not just investing in like widgets and gadgets, but like, again, what do we feel is something that should exist? Where do we think
Mhm.
there's good, demand? Where do we see good execution? And again, what teams do we love? So we're basically generalists. We don't have to invest in one category or another, but I'd say we're kind of repeat investing in some of these categories that we've really, really enjoyed. And I personally, I guess you could say I'm over allocated in private, but I love my portfolio. I love how we allocate, and I'm going to continue to do that.
My gosh, I love that. And now for one of my favorite questions to ask our guests is I always love to have them give a shout out to someone in tech that they really admire right now. So it could
Mm.
be a founder, fellow investor, community builder. Would love to hear who you're inspired by lately.
Ooh, you know what? I'm gonna throw out the name of the woman who runs this kind of kids mental health tech company. The way that she shows up and her passion around it, it was really brilliant to hear her on a panel recently. And I'm now looking at the company. Her name is Lars, and the company's called Ginkgo, Ginko. So I'll give her a shout out. Yeah.
I love that. Natalie, this has been such a fun episode, and I've so enjoyed having you on the show to share the many incredible things that you're doing with She's Independent. And I'd love to have you share with our listeners where they can find you online in case they'd like to connect.
Absolutely. Well, this was such a pleasure. Feel free to find me. I'm on LinkedIn, Natalie Levy. I'm sure if you also run a search on Cash's Queen, Natalie Levy, a bunch will come up. Feel free to check out the book. Let me know how it lands. Uh, Beyond LinkedIn, yeah, Instagram, we're pretty active. Both I am my personal LinkedIn, or sorry, my personal Instagram, and also our business Instagram. Mine is at Natty Graham underscore and underscore B. B is my dog. And then at she's independent underscore for our Instagram link, or our Instagram, excuse me, for the business. Clearly it's like a Monday and I didn't actually do coffee today. I'm doing adaptogenics. So I'm, just bear with me. But yeah, there's pretty good SEO. So if you run a search on me, you'll probably find a decent amount.
Fantastic. And I'll include those links in the show notes for listeners to easily find you. Thank you so much again for
Awesome.
coming on today's show.
Really appreciate it. Thanks again.